Hey, my name's Andy, and you're listening to the Fishhawk murders. This is the true story of murders that happened in my small town when I was a boy. It's a story of a horrific event that changed my life and the lives of people around me forever. Before the murders, Fishhawk was just like every other small town in America. I remember attending church potlucks, my Little League games, and my sister's gymnastic meets. My parents never worried about locking our doors. Children walked home alone from school, and we stayed at town parks way after dark. Fishhawk was a safe and desirable place to live and raise a family. All of that changed on one fall day in 2007. The tragedy I'm going to tell you about has been completely overlooked by history. Maybe this story went unnoticed because it happened in a small town, or perhaps because it took place in the state of Florida. Florida has a long history of saturating the media with crazy and bizarre stories. There's so many Florida man stories out there now, it makes sense that some news stories could get drowned out in all the noise. It's also possible that the stories of these killings was suppressed by local law enforcement or politicians trying to control public fear in the surrounding communities. There were also other popular stories dominating the national news at the time. In August of 2007, the country was following baseball player Barry Bonds as he broke Hank Aaron's home run record by hitting his 756th home run. An NBA referee pled guilty to charges that he placed bets on games he had refereed. And a Mississippi River bridge in Minneapolis, Minnesota collapsed, killing 13 people. The country's attention was divided. Whatever the case, the details of this event are so unusual, I'm astounded that they are not more well known. I was in 8th grade when this happened, and in Fishhawk, Florida in 2007, nobody was keeping up with baseball home run records or cheating referees. We were all petrified. All we knew was that there was a killer loose among us. It's all that I or anyone else could think about. Even to this day, many years later, the murders replay in our minds almost daily. Since beginning this project, I have spent nearly all of my time reviewing the evidence and interviewing the people involved, many of whom I know personally. Obviously, I'm using aliases for those who wish to go unnamed and to protect the innocent. We began on a typical sunny and humid Tuesday morning in Florida on August 7th, 2007. At 8:46 a.m., it was already about 75 degrees out. A Hillsborough County Sheriff's Officer named Dan Murray, parked at a gas station in Valrico, Florida, receives a call from dispatch reporting shots fired at an altercation between two vehicles on Lithia Springs Road. The eyewitness reports seeing a black SUV shooting at a green truck. The black SUV left the scene and heads toward County Road 640. Officer Murray turns his sirens on and heads south down County Road 640, toward Lithia Springs Road. Even though the SUV and Officer Murray are on the same road, the SUV is also heading south and away from the officer. Lithia Springs Road is a country road that leads to the entrance of Lithia Springs Park, a popular swimming area. The drive takes Officer Murray about 15 minutes. Even though this area is near the city of Tampa, the area is actually very rural. The area is known for farming and phosphate mining. At this time, the area has yet to experience any of the growth it would see later. The two-lane road Officer Murray is traveling on is only populated by sporadically placed country houses. While Officer Murray is still en route to the scene, the black SUV involved in the shooting abruptly stops at a stoplight in the town of Fishhawk. The male driver and female passenger pull up next to a blue Nissan pickup truck that is stopped at the light on Fishhawk Boulevard. In the pickup is Sonny Minhas, a 23-year-old security guard driving home after working night shift at a local phosphate mine. His truck windows are down to allow in some fresh air. Sonny takes notice of the SUV pulling up to the light erratically, almost squealing to a stop. He hears the male and female occupants arguing loudly, the woman screaming at the man. The SUV's windows are also rolled down. Sonny grew up in Fishhawk, and he knows nearly everyone in town, and he doesn't recognize the SUV or the couple. Sonny becomes curious and turns down his radio to try and hear what the couple is arguing about. He focuses in on what the woman is yelling, and he hears her shout something about shooting a gun. When the light turns green, Sonny stays put and lets the black vehicle pull off first, and notices it's a Chevy Tahoe with Virginia plates. Sonny makes a left turn into McDonald's. Later, he says he just had a really bad feeling about the SUV and the people in it. He drives around the McDonald's and gets back on the road and heads in the direction of the SUV to follow it. Sonny calls his best friend Jordan on his cell phone. He fills Jordan in on what he saw and what he's doing. Sonny says it's only a 20-minute straight shot to I-75, and he figures if these people are up to no good, once they get to the interstate, they could disappear forever. Later, Jordan tells me he was not surprised to hear Sonny was following the suspicious vehicle. He said Sonny is a wannabe detective, not the serious law and order type, more like Reno 911. He's a friendly do-gooder, always trying to help out and solve hypothetical crimes. When Sonny catches up enough to see the SUV, there are two cars between them obscuring his vehicle. Sonny says to Jordan laughingly, "Hey, I didn't have anything else to do." Sonny admits to Jordan that he is probably just being paranoid. He says that he does not see the SUV speeding or anything. He says he's going to turn around soon and head back to McDonald's to get breakfast. Jordan is talking to Sonny from the convenience store where he works and tells Sonny he has seen several sheriff's cars speeding toward Fishhawk with their lights on. He tells Sonny he doesn't know where they're going, but maybe he should keep following the black SUV just in case it's somehow involved with what's going on. Jordan also tells Sonny to be careful. Sonny is about a quarter mile behind the SUV and about 5 minutes from the interstate. He sees the SUV turn right onto an unpopulated dirt road before reaching the interstate. Sonny finds an inconspicuous place to park where he can see but is hidden from others. He watches the SUV park and sees the couple get out and walk toward the LFI riverbank. Sonny describes the couple to Jordan over the phone as probably Latin American, young, probably in their late 20s. The man has dark short hair. He's about 5'10" and slender. He's wearing black jeans and a gray shirt with tennis shoes. The woman is short and skinny with long curly dark hair. She is dressed in blue jeans and a white shirt. The man walks down to the edge of the river, looks around briefly, and then throws an object out into the middle of the river. Sonny tells Jordan he thinks it could have been a gun, but he's not sure. The couple still appears to be agitated and is arguing back and forth as they return to the car. Sonny snapped a few pictures of the couple with his cell phone. As you can imagine, they were not great pictures from that distance, but you can make out the SUV and the couple pretty well. Sonny continues telling Jordan what he is seeing. He says, if they have anything to do with those sheriff cars you saw, they could be drug dealers. Jordan asks Sonny if he wants him to call the police. Sonny says he'll call the police as soon as he finds out where they are going. The SUV pulls back out onto the road and then gets on the busy interstate. Sonny follows. Sonny remembers that he needs to call his mom, who he lives with, to tell her he will be late coming home. He tells Jordan he will call him right back and hangs up. He then calls his mother and tells her he has some errands to take care of. Now back on Lithia Springs Road, Officer Dan Murray arrives at the shooting scene, and he sees a green truck stopped in the middle of the road. He parks his cruiser to the rear of the green truck. He gets out and walks slowly towards the driver's side. Through the truck's back window, he sees a motionless person sitting in the driver's seat. He stops short of the still running truck. He sees what looks like blood dripping out of the bottom of the cracked open truck door and onto the street. He calls to the occupant, "Hey, are you okay in there? Can you hear me?" He gets no answer. Officer Murray walks up to the back of the truck cab and reaches one arm in the window to touch the motionless driver. He pushes the driver's shoulder and calls again, and there's still no response. He takes another step forward so he can take a look at the driver, and he sees it as a young man in his early 20s. The man is unresponsive and is bleeding from his chest. There is a handgun in the man's hand, which is lying on his lap. Officer Murray checks the young man's neck for a pulse and determines he's already dead. The officer looks around and there is no sign of any other threats. He walks back to his cruiser and calls the homicide in on the radio. Then he starts looking around for any possible witnesses while he waits for other officers to arrive. Several hundred yards behind the green truck, Officer Murray sees a woman standing in her yard behind her gate. He walks over to her and asks if she saw what happened. She informs him that she is who called 911. Her name is Patricia Woodworth. She explains she was outside watering her plants when she heard the gunshots. She looked up and saw the black SUV and the green truck facing each other, as if they had been traveling in opposite directions and stopped to talk. After the shots were fired, the black SUV sped off back to the main road, after which she went in and called the police. She says she has never seen the black SUV before, but she knows who owned the green truck. She believes it belongs to the Johnsons, her neighbors who live up the road. Now backup sheriff cars begin showing up, and Officer Murray explains the situation with the young man's body and asks him to secure the crime scene. Then Officer Murray and his patrol sergeant, Tyler Lucy, walk over to the Johnsons' house. The house sits back off the road on a 3-acre lot with lots of very large pine trees in the yard. It's a 2-story white farmhouse with a wraparound country porch. It has large square pillars across the front supporting the porch's roof. The officers have no idea what to expect. They prepare themselves to either meet another threat or to deliver the news of a deceased loved one. They walk up to the door very cautiously, ready to draw guns if needed. They knock on the door and yell, "Sheriff's office!" multiple times before trying the doorknob. It is unlocked, so they push it open. They call out a couple more times with the door open, no response. From the doorway, the officers can see what looks like blood soiling the walls and floor. A burnt smell comes from the house as if there had been a recent fire. What Officer Murray and Lucy saw when they walked into that house continues to haunt them to this day. In Officer Murray's words, it was a gruesome, bloody massacre. They walk into the foyer slowly, and when they reach the opening to the living room, on the left, they see a naked, decapitated adult woman's body sitting on a recliner. The woman's headless, brutalized body appears to be staged to face the foyer to greet whoever enters into the home. Blood splatter covers nearly everything that can be seen. On the mantel above the fireplace is a burnt human head, also facing the entryway. The head is scorched black with burnt skin peeling off of the skull. The scene, along with the smell of the burnt flesh, sends shockwaves of disgust through the officers' bodies, and neither can remain in the house. They exit the front door, and it takes them both quite a while to compose themselves. The officers radio for more assistance and decide they need to stay outside of the house until it arrives. They request all possible resources to be dispatched to the scene. Once homicide investigators are on site and everyone is briefed, personnel go back inside to clear the home. The home belongs to a longtime local family, the well-known and well-liked Johnson family of 5. In addition to the young man found dead in the green truck, who was 21-year-old Justin Johnson, officers find 4 other dead bodies inside the home: Chuck and Amanda Johnson and their 2 younger children, Elizabeth 12 and Matthew 8. All 5 family members are dead. Officers find both Chuck and Amanda are decapitated with their heads burned. The children's bodies are found lying on their beds with their throats slit. All of the bodies in the home show evidence of brutal torture before their deaths. Now we return to Sonny Minas, who is still following the couple in the SUV in his pickup truck on Interstate 75. He has been following behind the SUV now for about 30 minutes. There is enough traffic between them to keep him from being noticed. Sonny gets so consumed with tailing the vehicle, he has not noticed that his cell phone has died. Sonny follows the couple as they pull off the exit and pull into a Flying J truck stop in Seffner, Florida. The SUV pulls to the back of the building. Sonny pulls into a parking spot on the other side of the lot and out of their view. He sees the woman go into the store. He sees the man get out and go to the back of the SUV. The man starts to smoke a cigarette. The man is scanning the whole area while he smokes. Sonny bends down in his truck as the man's eyes pass over the area where he's parked. A few seconds later, Sonny looks back up and he sees that the man has opened the SUV's hatch. The man is rifling through bags in the back when the woman returns. She is on her cell phone and still visibly upset. The woman is screaming at the man while also continuing her phone call. She walks around the corner back toward the front of the store, and the man lowers the hatch to follow her. Sonny impulsively gets out of his truck and walks toward the SUV to get a closer look. Remember, at this point Sonny still has no idea that anyone has been killed back in Fishhawk. Sonny walks hurriedly toward the SUV. He uses other cars and people to obscure his path to the back of the car. He stops only a few feet from the SUV, which is positioned behind the gas station's dumpster area. He peers around the corner of the building and does not see the couple. Sonny examines the vehicle and notices the man has only lowered the hatch. It doesn't look like it is completely closed and locked. Sonny's curiosity overtakes him. He looks around and the coast is clear. He quickly lifts the hatch and looks inside to find several black duffel bags. One bag is open and it's full of stacks of cash. Sonny looks up and around again and still sees no one. He grabs the open duffel bag and 2 more, leaving the SUV hatch door open, and hurries back to his car, returning the same way he came. No one in the lot pays any attention to him. He throws the bags into the front seat of his truck, starts it up, and heads out of the parking lot. As Sonny drives away, the man from the SUV returns and sees the hatch open. He runs to investigate and notices the missing bags. He turns quickly to look around in all directions, and he hears Sonny's truck screeching back out onto the road. Sonny sees the man, and the man's eyes are locked on Sonny's pickup as it heads back towards the interstate. Sonny nervously speeds back to the highway. He gets on, heading back south. He gets off at the next exit on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. He checks the rearview mirror, and he's sure the couple is not behind him. He's ecstatic. He screams with excitement, and he feels proud of himself, overjoyed thinking he has just got the best of some Virginia drug dealers. Sonny takes back roads the rest of the way back to Fishhawk. He isn't sure how much money is in the bags, but there is no doubt it is the most he's ever seen in his life. Sonny drives back to the phosphate mine where he works and buries the duffel bags in an abandoned gypstack. A gypstack is a hill that contains all of the waste byproducts of a phosphate fertilizer plant. After Sonny hides the money, he goes home and says nothing about any of what happened to his mother. He puts his dead phone on the charger and takes a shower. It's only about 1 p.m. now. After he gets dressed and gets something to eat, he picks up his phone and he sees that he has several missed calls from his friend Jordan. He forgot all about calling Jordan back, so he dials the number. Jordan answers and screams into the phone, "Sonny, where the fuck have you been? How are you? Are you alright, man?" Sonny says, "I'm at home. I'm fine." "Dude, I think those people you followed this morning killed Justin Johnson and his whole family." Sonny and Jordan know Justin from high school. Justin was a local baseball star, a local sports hero. He was scouted by all of the colleges while in high school. He played 2 years of college ball in Georgia and was now the starting third baseman for the Tampa Manatees, a local minor league team. Sonny tells Jordan he is devastated by the news of Justin and his family. Hearing this news and thinking of all of the day's activities has weakened him physically. He's overwhelmed. He has to sit down on the floor for several minutes and is unable to speak. He listens as Jordan fills him in on what he knows about the murder so far, which is very little. Jordan does not know whether anyone has been caught. Sonny asks if Jordan told the police about their morning conversation, and Jordan says he has not yet. Sonny tells Jordan they need to meet up ASAP so he can discuss what happened with the couple earlier. They agree to meet at 4 p.m. at the Fishhawk ballpark after Jordan gets off work. Now back at the Johnsons' home, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office decide the investigation is going to be too big for their resources, and they call in the Tampa office FBI for support. Lithia Springs Road is closed to all traffic. The park at the end of the road is also closed, and anyone trying to drive to their home on the street must pass through a law enforcement checkpoint. Once in their homes, they are instructed to stay inside. This is the most gruesome crime any of the law enforcement officers from any agency has ever seen. So who was his family that had been brutally murdered? Why would somebody want to murder an entire family? The FBI conducted a deep dive into their history to try and answer that question. I used FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, to have the case files released. I have also done my own research talking to friends and family of the Johnsons. Both Chuck and Amanda grew up in the Fishhawk area. Chuck and Amanda Johnson started out as childhood sweethearts. They were married 2 years after high school. They both finished college in Central Florida before having their 3 children. Chuck was an electrical engineer and Amanda was a registered nurse. They had been married for 28 years at the time of their deaths. They had been members of the First Baptist Church their entire lives and still attended regularly. Mr. and Miss Johnson were leaders in the church. Amanda taught Bible school and Chuck was a mentor in the Young Christian Men's program. Chuck also volunteered as an assistant baseball coach at the high school. They were a popular couple and known to be kind and generous. Chuck's business, Total Design, was located on Fishhawk Boulevard. The company worked to develop and maintain electrical systems for new construction and existing buildings. With all of the growth in Florida at the time, Chuck's company was doing very well. He employed 3 other engineers. Chuck's company had a part in most of the buildings still standing in Fishhawk today. He was known for his honesty and his commitment to always deliver on his promises. Amanda worked at the regional hospital in pediatrics. She was a born nurturer. Caring for people she loved and for people who needed her was in her blood. She had cared for just about every kid who grew up in Fishhawk and knew most of them by name. She often joked about not being able to get through the grocery store without being stopped by at least 10 worried mothers asking about their ailing children. She really didn't mind the impromptu supermarket medical appointments. She was kind. One of her favorite quotes to recite to her own children and Bible study students was to never underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, and a kind word. Chuck and Amanda's 3 children were Justin, 21, Elizabeth, nicknamed Ellie, 12, and Matthew, 8. Justin, as I already mentioned, played minor league baseball for the Tampa Manatees. He was a handsome young man, tall with brown hair, brown eyes, and an athletic build. He lived in an apartment in downtown Tampa with a couple of his teammates. He was engaged to be married to his own childhood sweetheart, Anne. He and his fiancée were planning to get married the following year in the spring of 2008. Justin often came home to Fishhawk to spend time with Anne and his family. He liked to spend time with his 2 younger siblings. Whenever his baseball team was in town playing home games, Justin would come home to sleep over at his parents' house. He and Anne would often take Ellie and Matthew to the ballpark with them. Justin still liked to practice baseball drills with his friends from high school. He was kind of a local celebrity, and often the practices would attract a crowd of younger baseball fans. Anne would sit in the bleachers with Ellie and Matthew and eat candy or ice cream. Often, once the older boys finished their drills, the younger spectators would join in for a game of sandlot baseball. Justin's dream had always been to play in the big leagues, and he was doing well in the minors, garnering some attention. He had told Anne that he was going to do the minor league thing for a couple of years, and if it didn't work out, he would finish school and work with his dad's company. Everyone supported Justin's dream. He actually had the talent and the resolve to make it possible. Ellie was a 7th grade honor roll student. She was tall and thin with blonde hair and blue eyes. Ellie had been doing gymnastics since she was 4 years old and was quite accomplished. She had her own trophy case in the house comparable to Justin's. She was a captain on her youth competitive cheer team and was described by her friends as the most talented and friendliest girl on the team. She was said to have a smile that would light up a room. Ellie enjoyed working with the newer members and teaching them the routines. Ellie's team was scheduled to compete in the World Cheer Competition in Orlando 2 weeks after she was murdered. Her team unanimously decided to bow out of the competition after her death. Her cheer team now gives out a yearly award in her memory. The Elizabeth Johnson Award goes to the girl who exhibits Ellie's qualities: kindness, leadership, and determination. The youngest child, Matthew, was a 4th grader. He was an extrovert and had a clever wit. There was never a boring moment while he was around. He was also athletic like the rest of his family. He played Little League baseball and his favorite school subject was math. He had auburn hair with brown freckles and brown eyes. Matthew was adored by his family and friends. This heinous crime truly made no sense. The FBI questioned their neighbors, friends, church congregation, and all of their co-workers and could not find one person who disliked the Johnsons. Thank you for listening. On the next episode, I use case files to describe the scene inside the Johnson home, the FBI makes an arrest, and Sonny's involvement continues. If you like this content, please follow, share, review, or tell a friend about it.